Now then, let's take a much closer look at the Sigma jackets. I've got two of them here actually to show you. I've got a Sigma jacket made in MX and a Sigma jacket made in Ultra Shell. Those are the two options, the two fabric options that you can choose when you look at one of these jackets, and if you order one and ask us to make one for you. There's several options. So I want to look at the Sigma jackets today. I want to look at the design principles, the design features, and also look at the options that are available to you when you order from us. PhD of course isn't a mass manufacturer of insulated gear. We're specialists in lightweight and extreme warmth for mountain sports, but we don't do it in the form of mass manufacturing with jackets coming off the end of the production line. We have a different approach. We make to order. Every single piece we make is handmade. It's made to order for our client, not going through shops but going directly to the person using it. There's an advantage in that. A client can choose exactly the way they want it, looking through the options and the sizes. And in addition, with PhD we can do custom sizes, so if you want the sleeves to be longer or shorter, or the body lengths to be longer or shorter and so on, we can adjust the size both in synthetic garments and in down garments, and of course with sleeping bags. We can make the items just as you want for your own expeditions. Let's have a look at the Sigmas today. So we'll first of all look through the details, the features, and then we'll look through the options. The Sigmas are synthetic filled garments. The insulation material inside here is a synthetic insulation, and the advantage of that over down-filled garments is that there's more resilience to wet, damp conditions. So in the UK, for instance, where we do tend to get wet autumns and winters, synthetic insulation is very important and very interesting to us and could give us several advantages. Now, whenever you're looking at creating insulated garments or insulated sleeping bags, there's two critical details that come first. First of all, with PhD, everything we design starts with the stuff sack. How light can you make it and how small can you make it? The smaller that piece of kit is inside your rucksack when you're carrying it, the better, because there's a good chance you'll carry it for more time than you'll actually wear it. So that just the same with down garments, we're looking at how light can we go and how compressible can we go. Now there's two details that are particularly interesting in insulated clothing when you're looking at mountain sport. First of all, the fabrics need to create total wind block. That's a huge advantage when you're looking for insulation. If you can cut the wind off your skin, if you can stop the wind moving across your skin, you've already gained a huge advantage before anything else is done. So when we look at the fabrics on the Sigma jackets, we've got two options. We've got MX and we've got Ultra Shell. MX, this is MX, it's a black fabric, totally windproof, it's downproof, Primaloft proof, of course, synthetic wadding proof, and very, very light, packs down small, so it's doing that job primarily. Its most important job is to cut the wind totally. So MX is there. This one actually is made of Ultra Shell. Ultra Shell again is a very light fabric, totally windproof. That's its core feature. But it's also got one other detail. It's a water resistant fabric. It's got a DWR coating on the outside, and on the underside, the other side of the fabric, the side that's touching the wadding inside the garment, that's proofed as well. It's got a spray-on waterproof treatment, and that is a breathable waterproof treatment. So it gives it a lot of advantages. It helps it elevates the performance at preventing water getting to the wadding. So there's two options there, Ultra Shell and MX. Okay, let's just look further at the details. So that's the fabrics, and then the second critical detail is the synthetic wadding. I really like Primaloft Gold. Now Primaloft Gold has a waterproof treatment to it, and it seems to repel water very, very well. I really like that. If you end up with synthetic material, synthetic wadding that mops up water and fills with water like a sponge, you've got a real problem, because all the air spaces that were in the wadding have now been pushed out and they're full of water. So you've really lowered the insulation value of that wadding. The wadding is actually holding water, not air, becomes heavy, wet and very, very cold. And so a proofing, a water repellency proofing on the wadding I find to be really advantage, and that's what we have here. Primaloft Gold. Now in this case it's Primaloft Gold 100 gram. Now 100 gram is the description of the weight per square metre of Primaloft. I use 60 gram, 100 gram, 133 gram and 200 gram, and I use those for different insulation levels, different amounts of warmth. The lower the weight, obviously the lighter the piece of kit we're going to get, and the smaller the pack down size. Now when we're talking about insulation, there's the weight of the insulation that matters, and to me a hugely important value is the waterproofness of the insulation. How well does it perform when it gets really wet? And that's why I choose Primaloft Gold. It seems to be very, very good at dealing with wet conditions. It will take on some water over a very extended period, but it takes a long time and it's really, really effective. The other thing you can do, of course, with synthetic insulation is you can, if you're wet through, if you've been out running, for instance, if you're in a race or if you're cycling, bike packing or something, and you're cold, wet, muddy and so on, you can put this gear right on top of it. It just doesn't matter. The wadding deals very, very well with it. Now, let's just look at the temperature rating of the Sigmas. They're rated at -5 degrees C. It's very unusual to see synthetic gear so warm and so light. And the way we've done that is we've used Primaloft Gold, very effective wadding. Just like with down gear, we're looking at loft, we're looking at how much air does the garment hold in its insulation. And there's a couple of factors that are important here. First of all, the weight of the wadding, well, it's 100 gram per square metre. And the second thing is, how is it constructed? I see a lot of garments where they've got a lot of stitching lines, quilted and so on. The fabric, the outer fabric and the inner fabric and the wadding are actually quilted together. It's done really primarily for either fashion reasons or to make it look like down. You know, they put stitch lines, quilted lines across it to make it look like a down jacket. It might look good, but it's actually costing you insulation. If you squeeze the wadding together, you're squeezing the space that should have air in it. You've reduced that space by squashing it all together and holding it together with a stitch line. So it's not doing anything functionally. It looks great, but it's not creating that ultimate target of ours, which is weight to warmth performance. And what we've done here is we use Primaloft Gold. It comes in the form of a sort of, they call it a sheet. It looks like a roll of fabric really. And we cut it like we cut the pieces of fabric, the pattern of the fabric pieces, and then we stitch it into the seams at the sides, along the zip and along the side seams and around the armholes and around the collar and so on. And that holds that wadding sheet in place. There's no stitch line or quilting gone on to compress that wadding, so you're getting the maximum amount of air in that wadding that you can possibly get. Let's just run through the details of the garment. It's a full length garment. I've extended it quite well on below the waist and onto the hips, and the reason for that is to really make sure cold air isn't getting up around the kidneys and around the waist and so on. So these are quite a long garment, really good for activity like climbing and so on, or cycling, where just a little bit of extra length in the garment gives you way more protection. I know it adds a little bit of weight, but I think that's worth it, just to get that a bit more insulation all around you. We've got a lightweight lycra hem to cinch it in around your body, lycra cuffs to cinch them in around your wrist. So for two reasons: stop cold air getting in and to stop the sleeve going down onto your hand. PhD sleeves are fairly generous. That's done on purpose. It's so that when you hold your arm out, you're not exposing your skin. Most of our activity is done where we're holding a pole or an ice axe or something like that. So to have your arms out in front of you is pretty typical in the mountaineering sports scene. And so the sleeves are generous. And so the cuff does two things. It stops air getting in and it stops the sleeve dropping down below your wrist. The jacket has a high, I'll just take this hood off a little bit so you can see it. I'll take it right off. It has a high collar filled with insulation as well. I mean, again, the way to get good insulation, it's not always easy to get a really tight seal around the neck. Everyone has different thicknesses on necks, but it is easy to have a high neck so it really comes in under the chin and seals out the cold. Let's just have a look at the design of the pockets and the zips. It's got a full length front zip, centre front zip they call it, full length. Now these zips are lightweight, they're YKK, so they're very high quality zips for hardware, but they're number 3 weight, so very lightweight zips. Okay, I appreciate they need a little bit of care. They're not really hard, heavy duty zips that take a lot of hammer. They're lightweight zips, like the fabric, it's lightweight fabric, and it needs handling with a bit of care and just a little bit of patience not to damage them and wear them out quickly. So very lightweight zips. The advantage of lightweight zips is it achieves that goal of a really lightweight piece of gear and a really good pack down size in the stuff sack. So a lightweight zip, and it's got a insulated baffle underneath it just to stop cold air getting through the zip. We've got hand warmer pockets at the waist, zipped, again number 3 YKK zips, and they're insulated, so when you put your hands inside it goes under the wadding. So very, very effective. My hand is actually just behind the inside of that fabric, so your hand is going inside the jacket underneath the wadding. It's a great way to get warmth around your hands. In many ways, pockets, it's a feature that the start point for us with pockets was always to create a hand warmer position. If your gloves or your mitts or failed, or they're wet through, or they're just not cutting it, or you've forgotten them and things like that, a hand warmer pocket is always a really welcome advantage. There's an additional pocket here on the chest, a zipped pocket high up on the chest, and that's insulated too. It's underneath the wadding, and that makes that pocket quite advantageous. It's warm, so if you've got your smartphone or a digital camera or GPS particularly, that's a good device to think about. Anything that's relying on batteries, when batteries get cold, of course, the performance drops and the lifespan of the battery kills the lifespan of the gear, really. So keeping the batteries warm is an advantage, and that's why that pocket is insulated. The other thing about a chest pocket, of course, is it's very accessible. If the bottom pockets are blanked off by a climbing harness, or they're blanked off by the harness, the hip belt on a rucksack, for instance, this pocket is always available. It's a big pocket. Let's just have a look. How far does it go? It goes down to there, so it's effectively from there right the way up, so big enough for quite a lot of stuff, stashing mitts and so on, GPS and snacks, that sort of thing. Really useful. Just have a look at the inside. So the outside on this one is MX, the inside is MX2. On this one, let's just have a look at this one here. This one's ultra shell on the outer. Now ultra shell is that water resistant fabric, so it gives it a little bit more wet weather performance. How much does that matter? It's quite useful, but the synthetic wadding deals very well with wetness, so it's a question mark which you want. A little bit more robust water resistance on the outer with ultra shell, and plenty of colours to choose from as well. I have ultra shell in several colours. The MX I just have it in black. So there we are, that's a look at the details of the Sigma. I find it a remarkable piece of kit, very, very light for a lot of warmth. That's its whole design feature. It gives a tremendous advantage in warmth. To have something this warm, it's got a typical operating temperature of -5, so the same as our Minimus jackets, our Minimus short puffer jackets. Very, very warm and very compact pack down size. That's its real advantage. I use the vest a great deal. I use the Sigma vest because of its lightweight performance, and I use it as a layering up piece, and it deals with water very well. Now, when you look at gear getting wet, there's a couple of potential ways this gear can get wet. Of course, the obvious is rain or wet snow, out in the rain and the gear getting wet. That's the most obvious, but there's a couple of other ways that this can cause concern. The other way is sweat coming from you being very, very active, and Primaloft works it seems to cope very, very well with that situation where you're sweating, you're putting through, you're getting a lot of water coming off your gear, going through your base layer and then going into the synthetic wadding, the insulated jacket that you've got on with you. I find it very, very good with your back, where you've got a rucksack close to your skin on your back, climber's rucksack for instance, where you're carrying it. The sweat isn't clearing very quickly and it gathers a little bit in the back of your clothing, and I find the Primaloft very good. That's why I wear the Sigma, the Primaloft Sigma vest. So there we are. Those are the details of the garment. Let's just have a look at the options. The first option to look at is size. Of course, we make them in extra small to extra large, but then we also do custom sizes. If you look on the website, if you look on PhD's website, there's a custom size button on the page which allows you to go into another page where you can choose the length of the body and the length of the sleeve, so you can get just exactly the right size to fit you. So that's the sizing option. The colour option comes with the fabrics. Another option worth looking at is the hood. Now, not everyone wants a hood. This is a optional hood and it's a stud-on hood. It's held on in place with planter studs. I'll just look through it. It's what we call a three-piece hood. It's got a piece across the crown, piece of fabric and wadding on that side and that side, so three-piece hood. It's very, very light. It varies a bit on the different fabric types and so on, but essentially it's about 40 grams in weight. It's insulated again with 100 gram Primaloft gold wadding. It's a very, very warm hood. It's got a simple lycra face to cinch it in around your face. So lycra around the facing. It's got a popper stud front so it can be closed at the chin, and as I say, it's removable with YKK, what we call planter studs, lightweight studs. Really effective piece of kit. It's not really designed to go over a helmet. It'll stretch over a helmet, but it's a bit small for that. But what I find when I go climbing with it is it's absolutely fantastic under the helmet. It's a very, very warm piece of kit. Makes a huge amount of difference. So if you're out climbing or even belaying, it's a very suitable piece of kit. But if you're using them particularly for camping, that's where a hood is really favourable. If you're sleeping in the garment or if you're in camp sitting around getting cold in the evening, the hood is a fantastic piece of kit. Windproof, of course, that's its key advantage, windproof and insulated, so fantastic piece of gear. Okay, so those are the details. As I say, these are handmade in England, made to order, so you've got plenty of options to choose, and I find the Sigma piece of gear very impressive when you look at its weight to warmth performance. It's a very warm piece of kit and packs down very, very small, so a super piece of gear if you're looking at wet conditions. I'm thinking about walking in constantly wet conditions, camping of course, mountain sports in wet conditions. They've been used regularly by ice climbers, Scottish ice climbers and so on, where we get wetness regularly. They've been used by canoeists a great deal, where those canoeists up in Greenland and those sorts of places, even in the summer months where you can get these wet periods as well as cold and sunny, so you can get these wet times. So they're very reliable for sea kayaking and that sort of thing. And bike packing, that sort of thing, where you're out with a bike and you can be in all sorts of weather. Synthetic wadding gives you that advantage there. So there we go, that's a close look at the Sigma jackets. Cheers.